layered laser signs. So I've done hundreds of these laser signs, doing multiple layers, all kinds of different applications. I've also made dozens of videos on the process. And so this video, it is going to be that kind of 101. All of the tips and tricks I've learned making these signs the last couple years, sales ideas, sales applications, but material types, finish options, how to get clean results with whatever laser you have, and how to account if you didn't get the cleanest results. Just so many tips packed into this one. So use the timestamps if you do want to skip around for a specific section, but there is a lot throughout. So really condensed it and kind of synthesized all these videos. So here you have it, layered laser signs.
So first up, how to adhere the layers. So right here, I'm adding a double stick adhesive. This is a product by 3M. There's a lot of other ones like this. Essentially what you do is you add it to your piece and then you cut it on the laser. And then after the fact, you can easily peel off the backer and you have that double stick tape there. So there are laser safe ones. So you don't want to just buy any, double-sided adhesive, but you can see right there, all those intricate pieces, that would be a mess to glue, and I would get the glue everywhere. So when I have really, really thin pieces, really finicky, I definitely like to use that double-sided adhesive ahead of time and then cut it with the laser, and then you can just peel it and you put everything right where it's at. You don't mess with the glue whatsoever. Now that stuff is pricey. There's a lot of different variations. I'll link down below some of the ones I use. Usually you have to find a different, distributor for that big stuff, but it pops and you don't see any glue squeeze out there at all. Along the lines of adding, a layer first, I do add this masking. So using some masking tape or this masking paper like this ahead of time, especially see I've colored MDF. Anything that I'm not going to paint afterwards, or I want to preserve, the wood grain or something like that, I always want to add, the masking. And so masking, really simple. This is just a DIY little roller here. If you want to learn more about that, this video references that. Sometimes folks ask. It's really simple. But here I have some nice hardwood veneers. I have some pre-colored MDF, and I layer that on first, and then I cut it. And then afterwards, you can peel it. You can see my little dude here. Really easy, and you preserve those colors. You don't have any burn marks. It adds some time, but you get a much, much better product. So really, like you see with this faux veneer, any real wood or the faux veneer like MDF or acrylic, I like to add it. It just makes it that much better. If I'm going to add paint, not as big of an issue. Here you can see these ones are some larger sheets of MDF, and there, it's done. I don't even have to paint. So this is really helpful if you're in a pinch or you don't have, the right weather conditions for painting or other factors, or you have a really cool material. Sometimes there's the pattern MDF. So definitely do the masking. It's pretty affordable. The masking is really affordable. Other option here you can see is the super glue, right? So CA glue is an option, but here you can see these are ones with masking. This is all MDF with the faux veneer. It just works better with the masking. All right, I do use super glue or CA glue and an activator. So you just throw down your super glue, and then if you use the accelerator, it just instantly bonds. You just got to be careful with that. Another tip with the super glue, after you apply it, I usually take that piece and I not dip it, I press it down on, a piece of cardboard so I don't have big globs of that glue coming up. And so I'll take it, I'll press it somewhere else, and then I'll do the final press because you don't want to go too heavy or that squeeze out is pretty unsightly. This I'm not going to reference too much. Sometimes I use wood glue and I'll use brad nails. This is an extreme case for a really thick, big nutcracker that I reference in another video on my oversized signs, but those are some options. When it comes to finish, one of the best friends is filler primer, especially if you're working with MDF. Now, a lot of laser users love MDF because it's so clean. It cuts clean, you get great results. You don't have to worry about the layers apply. But a filler primer or a sandable primer, it's going to fill in, the MDF is going to absorb it, and then you can just keep building up those layers, and then you can sand it flat. So if you're working with MDF or you have a porous wood where you don't want to see the wood grain, adding that filler primer or a sandable primer or even an automotive primer, that is a really, really helpful tip. Then you can, of course, prime it, right? You don't want to go straight to the color. Just again, it depends on the look that you're going for, but that's a huge tip. So here's the MDF. We got clean lines on the side. It makes a really professional look. Here you can see I had some wood grain that I didn't want to see, so I added that filler primer first. Other thing you see here is as I'm sanding, excuse me, as I'm painting these pieces, if it's a multiple layer sign, I don't have to paint everywhere, only the places that are going to show up through the layers. So on this, multi-layer nutcracker, you can see all the spaces I didn't paint. Same thing with other projects. So save the paint. Definitely don't need to paint the entire thing. But painting, set up, get your old Amazon boxes, old tablecloths. Obviously you have to be aware of, conditions, humidity levels, temperature. But after you've gotten all your paint down, a couple layers, I always like to do a clear coat. Just any kind of rattle can works great. If you're going to do a ton like this is actually for a game, playing Settlers of Catan, but it's got a lot of really great tips for laser folks. So I reference this one. After you get those colors, you do want to do a clear coat. Now, here's what I talked about earlier. We got some MDF, some really great colors. You don't have to paint these. They already come preset colors, so that's another option if you want to save time on painting. Now, staining is also an option. I typically cut the piece first and then I sand it. You can stain prior to laser. You just got to make sure it's fully cured so you don't get any kind of flames. But usually I cut it first, then I sand, and then I'll stain all the pieces. Of course, drying up, making sure there's no wet spots. And so I think staining adds a really cool effect, especially, for with basswood. You don't have to buy the more expensive, wood veneered, solid hardwoods, which are great, but they do get pricier. So staining is certainly an option. And then, of course, you would add a clear coat after the fact to preserve it. Again, any rattle can will work. However, if you're planning on doing volume, like a ton of stuff, I do recommend maybe investing in something a little bit bigger. Personally, I always just use the rattle cans. My favorite is a company called Deft Satin. Awesome. But you can just get lacquer, right? And then throw in some lacquer thinner, and then you can get a spray gun. Now, there's a lot of different spray guns out there. I recommend an HVLP system. Now, as a woodworker, I definitely will use this a lot more. But if you're planning on doing a ton of signs with clear coats, especially if you're doing wood grain, or again, if you're doing paint and you want to do that clear coat after the fact, you're going to spend a fortune with the rattle cans. And so an investment like this is a little bit more, but this is a really good system to get a superior finish. So for top coats, I do recommend doing something like this or getting a spray lacquer, not just any kind. So here you can see all those beautiful hardwoods. We got babinga, walnut, cherry, maple, oak. That's the real color of wood. That's the real color. So I want to preserve that with a good finish. Now you can also see as I'm putting out all that power on small pieces like this, again, that was that game. This works for signage as well. It's just an example. When I have small pieces like that, it's going to blow off. So I use double-sided adhesive tape like this, and then I just put the pieces down. Just be careful, especially for the small pieces, because you might, break them after the fact. But you could certainly use a rattle can like I did on a small project here. This is just some cheap, wood, basic wood from Home Depot. It happened to have some nice figure and color, so I kept it. That's just the color of the plywood. But here, these are all those beautiful colors. A good clear coat. Highly recommend a satin or semi-gloss lacquer. So earlier we talked about that double-sided adhesive, and here you can see it's pretty simple. I just peel it off and I'm adding in the layers. This one's pretty self-explanatory where the pieces go. All 4 layers of these gnomes are the same size. But when you get into more intricate signs, it's really helpful to make a template. So when you cut out your pieces on the laser, go ahead and make a border in the software. I'll show that at the end along with some other considerations. And then you can put each piece exactly where it needs to go. This is my favorite method for getting good alignment. Obviously, there's no adhesive on the back of that piece, but I just made an extra template where I can put every single piece right where it needs to go. In this situation, that double-sided adhesive works really well for all the pieces. You certainly could still do this with the super glue. Again, get the general idea. Sometimes you don't have to make a whole template, just a small template for the sections that you think are going to be a little bit more problematic. So you can see a lot of different materials I'm using. I am using acrylic here. I'll talk about some of the considerations for different types of materials on the machines shortly, but right here I want to just show these tips on the alignment. So here I just got some scrap, some junk wood, not really good, plywood that I use for my alignment to get it perfect. Really helpful on these bigger signs or when alignment's really important. So here again, you can see I'm using super glue on some of the pieces, just really quick. Oh, I don't want squeeze out, so got to be careful there. And then if you use the activator, just be prepared to go fast. I didn't use it there because I didn't think I'd be fast enough. And now a little bit of alignment, right? So this one's pretty straightforward. Everything goes right where it goes, but you get the idea. And just one more, here is a larger sign. I was able to cut that whole round on the laser and all these intricate little pieces, mixing both, mirrored acrylic, mixing MDF, plywood that I painted, some stained pieces. Again, those templates make things really simple. And so highly recommend that. Also, later in the video, while we talk about software and some design ideas, we'll talk a little bit more about sales. But obviously, nursery signs are huge, right? So, kids' rooms, nursery signs, birth announcements, that is a great moneymaker. There's no shortage of opportunities for that. Also, realtors. Usually, with people with businesses, with laser businesses, I always encourage folks to look for business to business relationships. And so, making a big oversized key for a realtor or something like that, or, a teacher, there's a lot of city applications for a key. Just consider, your local businesses. That's really where the money is made. Obviously, doing custom orders from time to time certainly helps, but certainly look into that. One other way that you could do is you could do a scoring pass. And so instead of making a template, you can see on this one, I did a score, just a light score, so I know where each letter goes. Now that's helpful for alignment. I don't like this way as much because if you're not exactly on, it doesn't look as great. So I do prefer doing the template. I think it just works a lot better. All right, laser considerations. So, a lot of different lasers out there. Since we're primarily talking about cutting, we're going to talk about diode machines like the M1 Ultra you saw, or the S1, or a CO2 laser like these xtool P2S and the P2. The P2 they no longer make, but they still have the P2S. We'll talk about some other ones like the P3, but considerations if you want to be doing acrylic. Now, certainly diode machines, diode laser, most entry level laser, it can cut some acrylics, but it's going to be limited on anything with glitter, any clear, and then some colors, some blues. And so if you want to be cutting acrylic, which I think adds such a great pop, you are going to need a CO2 laser. And so, that is a bigger investment if you don't have one, but there are some great savings right now. Xtool, for instance, they now have their big P3 laser, which is amazing. And so now the P2S is at a discounted rate. And so you can get a great most of my videos, these are all done with the P2S. And so acrylic, like the gold, the colors, I think it adds such a pop of color. I love mixing acrylic with wood. So yeah, most of my projects and my laser projects have been done on the P2 or the P2S. Of course, the P3 is amazing. What a workhorse, and it's bigger. But acrylic, there's a lot more I think you can do and some really cool materials. So that's a consideration is incorporating acrylic, especially the clears in your lasers. So a little bit more on the P2S, right? You can see it. There is, attachments. I'll talk about lasers, later in the video, and you can look at my other videos if you're curious about these machines. But just trying to give you a little bit more inspiration and ideas of what you could do with lasers, and specifically if you want to do, the acrylic and all the colors of acrylic and some of those materials, you're going to need a CO2 laser. The great laser, right? Best entry level laser is the S1. It's a diode laser, and this is my wife, right? She is using this laser. It was really simple for her. Because there's not a camera in there, there's a lot of cost savings, and it's really simple to just move it. It anchors in the points, and it works great. It's a really great machine. I've used it for a lot of applications. Here, she's making little layered signs for our sons. Got a little engraving. It's a great entry level laser, and there are add-ons for that as well. I think it also comes in 20 watt and 40 watt, some different considerations. I think the 20 watt's great if you want to cut some thicker stuff. 40-watt is great, but you're still going to need that CO2 power if you want to do the really thick stuff or bigger acrylic in all the colors. And another quick layered project to show with the S1. This is a 40 watt. It's the green model, but here we got a little Lord of the Rings multi-layered. There's a lot of really cool files out there on these multiple layer. You can do them for art, for sure. Art is definitely a great application, but you can customize these. It's actually pretty simple to create your own using the software. Another great savings is the M1 Ultra. This is a craft machine. So you can have a 10-watt laser or a 20-watt laser. I've done a lot of those mandala or layered animal ones with this. Now, this machine is unique in the sense that it's a laser, it's smaller. It is a smaller bed. There is also no camera on this one. But as far as all the lasers, this is probably the most affordable one because it's just smaller, right? But it's still awesome. It works great as a laser. I would recommend going with the 20 watt. The 10 watt just doesn't give you the kind of power you're going to want. But you can cut with it. It works great. But it's also a craft laser that also has like a Cricut or a Silhouette where you have a cutter, you have a blade tool. There's even an inkjet printer cartridge. So you can check out more on that M1 Ultra. That's another consideration for these signs. And now the P3. This is a layered laser sign video, however, showing the different lasers, more ideas throughout. Yeah, this one is massive. So this is much bigger, a lot wider, a lot longer. The tech in it is also insane. And so as I mentioned earlier, you can get some of the earlier models, which are still great lasers, at a great discounted rate. Granted, they are still expensive. Don't get me wrong, they are still quite the investment. But this P3, I've been using this a ton. As far as cutting, this is my favorite laser, hands down. It is so efficient. We're able to cut all the layers quick. We save so much time. There is a ton of tech. We're not reviewing this laser here. I got a lot of other videos that do that and show what this machine can do, but really intricate. And for cutting, it can cut just about anything and it can cut thick. Like here, it's cutting 1/2 inch plywood and it's not stopping because of the glue lines. This is a huge, huge time saver, especially for small businesses. You can even cut thick hardwoods, right? This is poplar. It's not a super hardwood. It's about 3/4 of an inch. Here is 3/4 inch cherry, able to cut through it no problem whatsoever. So not all hardwoods, right? Being a woodworker, I can definitely attest to that. If you're going to go like something like walnut, really 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch is the thickest you're going to go. But think of all the applications for signs with hardwoods where you have true solid hardwood as a backer, right? Doing plaques, right? There's so many more applications for layered signs. So you can check out my other videos on these machines. This one's called the P3. It is an 80-watt CO2 laser, but it is massive. It's got just efficiency galore and just crazy good tech. And yeah, MDF, which I mentioned earlier in the video, it cuts through like butter. Some machines really struggle with MDF. So if you're a professional sign maker, you're likely using MDF. And it can cut the thin stuff, and of course, it can also cut the thick stuff. But wait, this conveyor is just next level. I haven't even messed with the conveyors on the other machines. They were too cumbersome. This automatic conveyor, we have 2 feet wide, but limitless length. So I can create my own round for signs, the 2 foot wide one. I could also do, this 6 foot tall nutcracker. I could do a 20 foot tall nutcracker if I wanted to. It's got limitless length if I wanted to do that for some reason. But there's a lot more applications with this machine. And so definitely this one is pretty awesome. This also just gives you idea. You could do this on a smaller scale with a different machine, with some other signs. So you can do holiday signs. You could do signs, for churches and faith-based organizations. Hey, you could even use that laser to make that little display for all the paint, which I did with this machine. There's so many other options, right? Options. You could do signage. You can do longer word art. Of course, we got the Nutcracker. We can do a giant, orca. Lots of other cool signs. We referenced a nursery earlier. You can do letters. You can do it can engrave too. We're not really talking about engraving as much here, but it can certainly engrave and does a great job with that. Let's do a giant orca because we can. Or I'm cutting this 1/2 inch thick plywood, was able to cut it out and engrave. So this isn't as much layered signs, but pretty cool application with this machine and other ideas for other machines as well. I was able to knock these letters out for my son in no time. This is a great moneymaker for different sales, for nurseries, for babies, for kids' rooms. Great ideas here. And then of course you can see a lot more. So this is all that P3 video, but I have a lot of other videos that talk about these machines. I also have a lot of other videos on layered signs. And so here's just some, thumbnails of some of the other videos you can see on my channel. And there's a lot of ideas. And so, yes, I do reference some machines, but also just the applications and lots of tips and tricks throughout. And all of these apply to ornaments as well, which I think is one of the best money makers. But lots of different tips and tricks. So you can check out some of my other videos. So for some more nuggets, and of course, those giant ones, there's some ideas there. But right here, just a small collection of some of the projects that we've kept here at home. You can see that fun, San Juan Island with all the depths, topographic map and the layers. We're going to explore that more in future videos. Some pretty cool stuff. All kinds of possibilities for signage here. So pretty cool, pretty fun. Some ideas, but let's look a little bit more at some other tips. So really quick, I want to show you the software. We're not going to do a full tutorial of XCS. Now xtool Studio, really simple, right? So if I download a file like this, I have 3 different layers. I can just really easily right click it, change it to a different color. But then, if I wanted to just like, let's say I had one sheet, I'll just cut it all at the same time, or, I'm gonna do one project at a time. Here is an SVG that we downloaded. So I could just like say plywood or MDF, cut this whole thing. And then obviously these letters for progress and the not perfection and the border I'm going to be using. I'll probably paint those different colors, but then I could save that template right there to line everything up. It's really easy, for any of these other ones. Let's say, I had this. Let's just use this as an example. It's probably not the best example, but you get the idea. And I wanted to, here's my file, right? I have this, and I'm going to cut this out, but I want it to be centered in different places, or there's individual little pieces. Just the offset tool is really simple, and I use that a lot, and sometimes I'll, make it, much bigger. And, oh, okay, now I have the template. So when I cut this, I'll also have that template. It's probably not the best example. So here we go. We have the word test. Fantastic. And we have a capital E because I left the shift on. And we're going to leave it because that's cool. Now, simplest way, obviously, is just drawing a rectangle, right? Great. And then I cut it, and then I have everything together. I have the template. Other way, of course, is that offset tool. So nice. I use it a lot. You can do straight, if you want more. Anyway, that's really helpful for doing the signage for all these different signs. Really simple to edit. Lots of other great, settings in here. It's also really simple because, it has all the predetermined, all the settings are there for you. One other thing I like to share in all my videos is just where to find these files. And so obviously you can buy these on Etsy. You're gonna spend, $4 or $5. Something like this, you're probably gonna spend more like $7 or $8. However, Creative Fabrica, this is a website that is a subscription. So for $4 a month, you get unlimited downloads. That's right. Everything you see here, you could download and then some, just 1 month. I do have an affiliate link down below. If you use it, you get 10 free downloads before paying for anything. I pay for it myself, and most of the projects that you see, I found here. And so these are just a couple that I got just for examples of other ideas and projects that you could apply this to. But there are no shortage of cool, files on here. So these are just a bunch, for this, but just a ton of other stuff too. Other thing that's cool is the fonts, right? So there's so many different fonts that you could download and apply to your laser software. Really simple, really, really easy. So Creative Fabrica, you will find a ton of these 3D layered signs. I didn't even talk about awards, selling stuff like this for awards or trophies. There's metal racks for display. A lot of other ones. You saw me talk about the nursery. Well, here's the different month markers. You can do height charts, right? Of course, you know, the family signs, wedding signs. There's so many applications, but some more ideas and some more designs.
All right, there you have it. There is so much more. There is actually a lot more, a couple more considerations. But really, I do hope that this video added value. While I had all those other videos I referenced, I really tried to use this video to kind of synthesize everything together and just have, yeah, that one video to go to get started. Well, what did I miss? Feel free to drop in the comments what are you looking for maybe in a follow-up video, a little bit more along the sign aspect. What would you like included in the future or something maybe you get stuck on? But really, this channel, if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. You know, if this adds value to you, we're doing tips and tricks. So yes, you'll see these machines that I referenced, and I am gonna reference machines from time to time when new tech comes out, but really it's showing you how to use the machines, how to make cool stuff with it. And so lots of other really cool things, of course, also woodwork, other maker projects, but lasers, they're pretty fun. So questions, again, drop that in the comment down below. Okay. And yes, as I referenced, there's a lot of different lasers. Now, any laser that you purchase, that is going to be quite the investment. And so I definitely don't just buy it because I say to. I do receive those lasers in exchange for making videos. So I am not completely unbiased. I am being really honest with my reviews and my experience, but just take that into consideration. I do have this video, right, that compares all of the lasers for all of the things. I didn't really get into any of the F series, the Galvo lasers, because those, while they can cut, those are primarily for engraving. And so with this type of video, we're focusing more on the machines that cut. But anyway, that video is a comprehensive look at every xtool machine. Why xtool? Why only xtool? Had the opportunity to work with all the other laser companies, but xtool, it's just amazing company. One, their user base is just so massive. There's so many folks that you can interact with on Facebook for ideas, for tips, for tricks, also for help. A lot of these new laser companies, they don't have good customer support. And xtool really has doubled down on their commitment to customer support with US-based customer support. They also have Europe. Anyway, lots of different ways that they're trying to, you know, deal with any issue. So great. They got awesome R&D. You know, it's that whole ecosystem. Their software is so easy and intuitive. You know, I'll do more in future videos on that. It's just awesome. Great, awesome machines. So if you are interested in purchasing, watch that video, right? Learn more, research. But if you do end up making a purchase, consider using this QR code. This is our affiliate link or down in the description. It just means that we get a small commission of any sale, helps support my family. That's why I'm able to make these videos. Usually there's some extra savings added with that as well, but hopefully it does add value and, you know, hopefully you get inspired by the channel and some of the things that we make with lasers. Well, again, I hope this did help. Thank you for watching. Take care. Until next time.